But yeah, oftentimes you have a lot of executives who think, oh, okay, if we get celebrity person, then everybody's going to watch our show. And oftentimes, directors will not work as hard with the celebrity because they're a celebrity as they will with the talent who isn't nearly as well known. But we are now sort of getting into a side of things where you have those, I would say, almost celebrity voice actors where, there's those small handful of voice actors that most people, at least on the internet, know. And some of them have been in the anime realm. Some of them have not been. Most of them, once they get beyond anime, they don't want to go back because they're suddenly making way more money than they used to make with way more creativity for a far less of an amount of time in the booth. So again, most anime people would love to get out of there. That's not to say that they aren't grateful for what they're doing, but most of them don't want it to be all that they're doing, and most of them would love to be making more money.
Yeah, money's pretty cool. Yeah, no, this is my other thing, and I made this point in my last voiceover video that I ran by you. Mm-hmm. Why, and not just in acting, but in mixing and business practice and everything. Why is our bar the place paying the least? Why, they're all like, oh yeah, well, Funimation and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, bro, they all pay like, I've yet to meet a single person doing anime who's like, yeah, anime pays great. I've never met a single person who has ever said that.
You're not going to find that.
Yeah,
you're not going to find that.
Well, I mean, you're more connected to me.
They make their money from most of them make their money from the convention scene.
Oh,
and
yeah.
if they don't, a lot of them have other jobs. A lot of them on these same shows are directors or writers or doing ADR or just administrative stuff.
That's what,
because it's not enough money.
That's what kind of pisses me off about where anime is now, though, is that it's. I don't know, it's weird. So I think about Funimation in like 1998, 1999. I think that was, let's say like 98 to like 04. I think that's one of the coolest waves ever for entertainment because you just have a studio in Texas. They're getting people off the street and they're doing cartoons that are doing millions in viewership every single day. Uh-huh. And And they lucked out and they got Dragon Ball Z, the biggest anime property in America, second to, I guess, Pokemon and not Yu-Gi-Oh. But I mean, they're doing this huge show. I remember, what was it like? No, they had like 19-year-olds directing shows, and and so. Like, obviously, on a really major big scale, you probably don't want a 19-year-old directing every single show. But at the same time, it's like, it's cool that it happened, and it's cool that it happened not in LA and not in New York. But at the same time, it's become this thing where everybody wants to feel like the pseudo-celebrity. Everybody wants to like, oh, I'm going to go to a con. Oh, yeah, like sign this, sign that. And this is why it's weird is because like, I've been on YouTube for a few years now. I know I'm doing more traffic than a lot of people. And yet you'll see people who book like one or two animes and then they want to act like they're stars. And it's so weird to me. It's so weird to me. Like, and I feel like it used to be, oh, voice acting is it's the meritocracy. It doesn't matter what you look like or who you are or whatever. But now we see all these studios. I've heard this from a few people. I want you to address this rumor.
Okay.
A lot of studios, particularly anime studios, a lot of studios are casting based on looks now because they're worried about how their actors present themselves at various conventions and events. What is the truth or falseness to that rumor?
Oh, they're doing it now? Oh, it's not a now thing. That's been a thing for a minute.
How many years?
I can't put a number on it, but I can just go as far as to say that it's not new. Okay. And I mean, looks have always factored into
they weren't
the
doing
equation
that
to some extent, even going beyond anime.
They weren't doing that in like 2001, though, right?
Probably not. No.
Okay.
I would say once we kind of hit the social media sort of thing, and And it became easier and easier for people to find their favorite voice actors on Google and all that, and MySpace when that was a thing. Everybody kind of and followers and all that. People are looking at, I would say they're looking at a little bit more like they're looking at followers more than they are anything else. But there will be studios who will have, here's our new beautiful person that we can prop up and say, hey, look at this gorgeous new pop idol that we've created. We're going to send them around to conventions and say, hey, if you take our studio's workshops, you can be just like them. So that does exist. That has existed for at least 10 years, probably more.
I would say, because I'm just thinking about how the culture has evolved and how we've become more, I guess, cosmetic about anime. Mm-hmm. And I would say maybe 8 years ago, I think that's when it maybe started. If I'm just not that I have any insider information, but how I've sort of mapped the culture of how we view anime. Mm-hmm. And also the convention started exploding after 2010. And so I feel like in 2006, like I don't. Yeah,
I wouldn't go back to 2006, but I would say still close. I would say somewhere between that 2007-ish, 8-ish, somewhere between there and 2011, 2010 is kind of where things went like wild.
And that's kind of where it like gets so lame for me, is that it's so like just showing up and voicing some characters you didn't even create is becoming so corporate now. Mm-hmm. And most of the older people like don't act super corporate about it. The people who were there before it was a big oversaturated market. Yeah. But the people thereafter, you see a lot of people acting way more corporate than they should be. Not to tell anybody how to run their business, but it's like there are people with only like a couple roles who will try to big time people. You see what I'm like? I don't know if you've encountered that. Or so you're a guy who isn't really doing anime all the time. Have you encountered, you don't have to name any names, but have you encountered scenarios where somebody who is doing more anime than you thinks they're more qualified or try to big time you doing Western stuff and getting paid more?
I have not had that happen to me, just because even though I'm not really that well known online, within the industry and in various territories, like I have a reputation for what I've accomplished as a performer and who I've trained and who I've mentored. So there are people who know my name in the business who like I've never heard of. And there'll be times where I'll see somebody putting out a take out there that I know is utterly ridiculous. And sometimes their take will be completely focused on just the anime perspective that they have. And I'll say, well, the industry at large isn't like that. And because I'm thinking in my head, like, who are you anyways? And they'll be like, oh, shoot, Deven said that? Okay, I'm going to stop now. So I recognize that that's a position that I am in, and that's something I've been able to do. And for the people who don't know who I am, I don't even know if this has happened before, but for the people who don't know who I am, who maybe would try to big time me, like all I have to do is just show them, like, here's what I've done, and they'll shut up. I've been doing this for 15 years. What are they going to say after they've been doing this for sometimes not even a full year?
But it's not anime, though. Anime is the most important thing ever.
Oh, that's right.
That's the point I was getting at, is that, like, yeah, of course you've done stuff, but not a lot of it is, because this is the weird thing about anime, is it's really, none of it is really that popular, but it has the highest concentration of obsessed weirdos. And so it's like...
My response to that is since they probably only been doing this for about a year or less, I'm probably, the difference between me and them is they're probably still working at a grocery store or something to cover the rest of their bills.
Yeah.
And I'm not.
Yeah.
So that's going to shut someone up pretty quick.
I'm gonna get a job at a grocery store again, just so I can feel the grind, just so I know what the anime actors are going through. I do want to say this though, and I'm not
necessarily knocking the idea of having to have a second job in order to. I'm gonna be that guy because I understand it can be a grind for anybody to get to that position, to be making a living. It's really, really hard, and it does require a lot of luck. But if you are just getting started, if you have such a limited perspective of the industry, then you need to be careful about what you're saying, because you ain't knowing all this stuff. When people are saying, like, here's how you make a demo if you want to make it in this business. And again, all you've ever done is this little bit of stuff. You got such a limited perspective. Don't say that, because you're not making anybody's careers better. You're going to be setting people back with some of the advice you're giving. I see that all the time.
I'm just trying to figure out how we got to this point where it's just anime that's like the biggest thing. Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's not... Because that's all I see is that there are people who, like, I know people who are, I guess, are in the amateur VO scene.
Right.
And they'll rail off all these names. Like, I mean, like, I know the people who voiced, like Dragon Ball. Like, I know some of those names.
Yeah.
I know some of the Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh names. I don't know anything outside of that. And, like, I see, it feels, the voiceover scene feels like skateboarding, where it's like the people trying to be pro are pretty much the main consumer. Mm-hmm. And that's really different, where everybody voice acting is a fan of anime and they want to be in anime, and some of them get the anime. But I don't know, like, there's something, maybe I'm just being old school, but like when I see, there was that famous Harrison Ford gif where they're asking him about Star Wars trivia and he goes, "Who gives a shit?" That is amazing to me. That's like great. That's a working professional. That, he doesn't hate his cast members. He loves the time, spent and the camaraderie that comes with, acting on a feature film. But at the same time, he's not worried about all this, like, you know what I mean? Like, he's not worried about all this, like, what did Han Solo do in chapter 4 of episode 7? Right. Like, he doesn't care. And like, there's something I appreciate in that. Think of it like this. Okay. Great analogy. This is going to make a million people upset, but this is an amazing analogy.
Let's go.
So, anime actors, doctors, you don't want to, like, a doctor can practice on a bunch of strangers, but it is common practice. It is bad for a doctor to practice on a family member or someone they know, because they will become biased.
Yeah.
With anime, what if that's happening? What if we are seeing malpractice in anime acting because they are too attached to it? What if?
Oh, you know what? It's hard for me to say that kind of works, because you could say the same thing about actors in a lot of, like, live action TV shows or movies. Sometimes you have people who are like, "Oh man, I grew up watching the earlier version of this show or this movie, so I knew exactly what would be needed in order to make this character interesting."
But I still have that stance. Like the Star Wars 7 through 9, I have that same stance. You have a bunch of fans making it. I don't want to see fans of it make it. I want to see people who are entirely detached making it. That's what I want to see. George Lucas was detached from the, like, he was like, this is my thing, but he didn't have this fan perception. He just had what was in his head, entirely unbiased.
Right. This is still a tough one, and I feel like there could be what you could say about George Lucas, though, is although he had his creative vision and it was, again, unbiased, as you said, there were ways in which he totally lost touch of what people wanted to see and what people enjoyed. And there are ways where he would have benefited from being challenged more, as everybody knows. Like the reason why the first two are like A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back are so much more beloved than any of the other ones is because of all the hardship that he had to get through and all the people challenging him to help it be as good as possible. So it really, really depends on so many factors that are at play. Because, yeah, you can have people who are genuine fans, but at the same time, they are not blinded by that. It's good to be able to work on something and actually understand it, to actually care can be a good thing. Care as much as you need to do a good job. I think that's ultimately what it comes down to at the end of the day. And Harrison Ford is one of those people. Except you can tell there are, especially in the latest movies, there are some moments where you can tell like this guy just wants his damn money, and who can blame him? But yeah, there's sort of that sweet spot that's kind of just somewhere in between, and that is me with.
Or sorry, I mean, with that analogy, I mean, I'm not going 100% with it, but I think it's something we should consider. I think it's like, I don't think it's always best when a fan of something is making something. I don't think it's always the best thing.
It's definitely not always best, for sure. I can honestly say there are things that I work on that I have become a big fan of and I care about a lot. There's something that I'm working on now that I was a little bit of a fan of and then decided to research and became much more of a fan of it so I could do, again, a better job.
What are some things you became a fan of?
Bakugan.
Wow, that's really cool. Awesome, dude.
More so, I think that the card game, the new version of it, is actually really, really well done. One of my castmates was like, "Dude, you gotta try this game," and I was like, "I don't like card games."
This is why the other generations don't like millennials. Because we're the only generation that's like adults and still willing to try out card games for kids.